You know you're not the emotions you feel, right? So many people make their emotions their identity. How you talk to yourself and the words you use are incredibly important. In this video, I'm going to be talking about something that's often neglected. How do you speak to yourself? What is the language you're using? So I want to break it down in this video. Let's get it started. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Shaan. We have an anxiety recovery program dedicated to helping people overcome their symptoms and go back to living. Now, the first thing I want to mention is something I've never really understood, which is this idea that I have anxiety. And even when I was struggling with anxiety, I never understood that. How do you have an emotion? The truth is that you don't have an emotion. You don't have anxiety. You're experiencing anxiety, right? We talk a lot about nervous system sensitization. All the symptoms you're experiencing, the panic attacks, the physical symptoms, is because your nervous system is sensitized. But it's not an identity. What you are experiencing is a side effect of your nervous system being sensitized. When you use words like that I have anxiety, you're not coming from a place where you're expressing how you're feeling in the moment. You're making it an identity. Oh, I can't public speak, or I can't give presentations, I have anxiety. I can't drive, I have anxiety. So do you see how what they're experiencing is becoming an identity? And what happens is that their identity becomes a limitation. The mentors and I, when we're helping people on the recovery journey, we're so good at identifying people's sticking points simply by just choosing to listen what words they say. How do they describe their anxiety? How do they describe what they're going through? You may have not realized, but even when we're talking about overcoming anxiety and the principles, we're so careful on the words we use. Have you noticed I've never used the word ignore? Have you recognized that I've never said the word distraction, right? Distract yourself. I never say that. And so I would break it down into 3 ways of looking at this. Number 1, the words you use reflect your beliefs. So if you're wondering, what are some of my limiting beliefs? What am I believing that might be true but isn't true? Look at the words you're using when you describe what you're experiencing. If you're using words like, I'm never going to get better, well, you're reinforcing the fact that you can never overcome this. But instead, if you're saying, I'm struggling right now, but I'm learning to overcome this, that's very different. But when you say, I can't recover or I'm never going to get better, well, that reinforces the belief. You're signaling to your brain that you can't get better based on the words you're using. Even if you're on the recovery journey, even if you're doing everything right, you're responding well, but you're not taking care of the words that you're using, subtly, you're reinforcing the brain that it doesn't matter what you're doing, recovery isn't possible. Then what naturally happens is your brain starts looking for all the reasons why this doesn't work, right? You're doing well, you might be making all the progress, but you experience a setback. Your brain is going to latch onto the setback and completely ignore all the progress you've made because of this belief that you have, because of the words that you're using. This idea that I'm never going to get better, I will be stuck in this forever. You're reinforcing the belief. The second is that the words you use influence your emotions. Politicians are great at this. Watch it. Anytime you hear a politician talk, look at the words they use. It's very strategic. They will use words like disastrous, illegal, reckless. Why are they using words like that? Because they want to evoke a certain emotion within you. That emotion is fear. And what happens is that when you are fearing something, your prefrontal cortex turns off, which means the critical part of your mind turns off. You're not thinking logically anymore. If you're using words like impossible, never, distraction, ignore, struggle, all these things, it's reinforcing a certain emotion. And when you are focused on the recovery journey, it's very important that you use neutral words, right? How many times when you're just experiencing some increased heart rate, you call it a palpitation? What happens anytime you have maybe an upset stomach because of your anxiety or maybe just some digestive issues, you call it IBS. So many people start using really intense words for symptoms that they're experiencing, which is uncomfortable, but they use big words for it. They start describing their symptoms as if it's a disorder in itself. I see this happen all the time. Saying neutral words takes out the drama of your anxiety. It stops it from becoming like this emotionally charged subject to something that's neutral. This works really well when you're experiencing symptoms, right? So let's say you're experiencing dizziness. You could say, hey, I'm just feeling a little bit lightheaded right now. But sometimes people will say, I'm experiencing vertigo, vestibular issues, right? And making it sound so much bigger than it is. When it's just, hey, you're just experiencing, a little lightheadedness. That's okay. Use words that are very neutral and use them on purpose, and recognize when other people are using emotionally charged words, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to evoke in you. This is one of those things, if you can understand principles of recovery, it applies in other domains of life. And the third is the words that you use influence your actions. Look, say what you want about human beings. Human beings are always congruent. They will always do things that they believe, right? This is called cognitive dissonance. So this idea that if you are doing something, well, it has to be aligned with your beliefs. So for example, if somebody asks for a piece of paper and I give them a piece of paper, when you ask, why did you give them a piece of paper? I would say, well, I like this person, that's why. But what if I didn't like this person and I still gave them a piece of paper? Well, then now there's a cognitive dissonance. Why am I giving somebody a piece of paper that I don't like? Well, so when I can't change my actions, I end up changing my beliefs, right? The point is that it's very important for you to use words correctly, because it's going to influence your actions. If you feel like recovery is impossible, your actions are going to reflect that. If you feel like recovery is just so much more complicated than it actually is, you're going to find ways to make it complicated. You're going to be exhausted by the end, wondering why it feels like it's so much effort, when really it's just the words that you're using. Now, the last thing I want to mention is using words like anxiety, OCD, panic, intrusive thoughts, all these different things don't make it an identity, right? What happens when it becomes an identity is that your ego will try to protect it. Your ego's job is to protect your identity. All these things become identities, and these things were never meant to be identities. These labels were given to you by your doctor so that your doctor knows what's happening without needing you to explain it. Basically, if you go from one doctor to another, you having the words behind what you're dealing with, the doctor knows immediately what you're dealing with. But they were never meant for you to have an identity. They were never designed for you to be someone that has anxiety or somebody that has generalized anxiety disorder. You are just experiencing anxiety in the moment. You are not stuck. You are in a transition. If you're feeling heart palpitations, if you're feeling dizziness, if you're feeling nausea, you're feeling it right now. That's it, right? Look how much of a difference that makes. I'm experiencing dizziness. No, you're experiencing dizziness right now. When you say I experience dizziness or I struggle with dizziness, that implies it's a permanent thing. This is why it's so important for the words that you use. So end it with right now. It sounds small, but I guarantee you it makes such a big difference. Recovery feels like it's something you're missing, that it's something you need to do. Partly, yes, you do need to do a couple of things, but so much of it is changing your mindset of what's happening. Recognizing that, yes, this is happening to you, but at a certain degree, some of the behaviors and patterns you're doing, without knowing, without putting any blame, is happening by you too. And if you can correct this, well, number one, you'll know recovery is within you. It's within you. And that's what you want. So if you just correct these things, you'll recover. And number two, it's recognizing that the words you use are incredibly important, and the words you use dictate reality. So it's very important that you understand that. If you're interested on the principles and steps on how to overcome these symptoms, I've written out a free ebook explaining to you exactly what's going on, the principles and methods you can use to begin the recovery journey. I created this basically because it was something I wish I would have had when I was struggling with anxiety. I couldn't figure out why I was experiencing symptoms. Nobody really helped me understand. And if I just had some basic understanding of what's going on, it would have helped me out so much on the journey. So the link is down below. It's absolutely free. Take a look. I hope this video helps. If you want to know more about the practical steps of anxiety recovery, check out this video that breaks down the 5 steps of recovery. I'll see you in the next one.